Brotherhood Machikari, and you want to know how you can support the channel? Go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification so you to be notified every time a new video gets downloaded. And welcome to the show. Thanks for a great 2018. It's December 31st. Come midnight, we're going into a new year, and a new year means better stuff coming over at Insane Throttle's Motorcycle Magazine. We are going to really ramp up this new year with a lot of on-site coverage of biker rallies, swap meets, you name it. We're going to be there. And if it wasn't for you guys out there subscribing to the videos, hitting that bell, and sharing all this with your friends, Insane Throttle wouldn't became as a success as it is now. But today we are going to get into how the motorcycle has actually brought together all facets of different cultures and life. And the reason why I wanted to do this video is because David Walters, he actually does a lot of history stuff, a lot of articles for Insane Throttle Biker News. And this article is actually up at HarleyLiberty.com right now. So this article has to deal with the Chosen Few Motorcycle Club. And as you know, the Chosen Few, they're a storied one percenter club and a mixed race motorcycle club at that. And their origins go back all the way to, I believe, 1959. When I get in the article, we'll get the exact date. But it just tells you what motorcycles have done for us Americans and all over the world. It brings us together as a community, even though we got different aspects in that community. You got your clubs, you got your independents, you got everybody out there loves a motorcycle. The feeling of freedom, that's one of the biggest things, and the camaraderie that brings us together. And it's all because of two wheels. But this is from Dave Walters, and this has to do with the Chosen Few Motorcycle Club. And Big Kaz, he actually has a station on here on YouTube that it's an awesome station, so go over there and subscribe to him. Real good guy. So this is by Dave Walters, and I'm going to be reading off my screen, so I won't be looking up at the camera right now. In 1959, Jim Crow laws were still in effect. Jim Crow laws wouldn't be abolished until the passing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act for discrimination for public accommodations. This was the official, on-the-books dates. However, restrictive passages could still be found in areas of Los Angeles, which had a radically restrictive profiling practices that would prohibit Black and Mexican Americans from renting and buying property. And it was a lot different time back then, and a lot of the older cats can actually tell you about them times. They're still out there. So if you want to learn a lot more about the way Jim Crow laws and stuff were like back then, go to the old guys. They'll teach you on that kind of shit. They would subjugate them to areas of Watts, Southgate, and Compton in South Central, which up until the 40s had been smaller white communities with around a 4% African American population. Biased real estate practices would limit opportunities for people of color to own businesses outside of these areas or attend schools that benefited from more property tax income, which were still relatively new. 1916-ish was the start of real estate property tax as we think of it today. That's according to Dave and his research. And Dave, he knows his history, let me tell you. This was especially common after the mass migration that saw many sharecropper families from the rural South come to Los Angeles to find a new life in the booming shipping, industrial, and defense contracting jobs at the start of World War II. In 1965, the Watt riots would see racial tension erupt and 34 people would be dead and close to 50 million in property damage would havoc the neighborhood. Though these tensions, trials, and tribulations, the black motorcycle set was growing and taking shape. We have covered some of the icons of that era, Toby Jean and the East Bay Dragons, the Rattlers, and others. One man riding his chopper into the 60s had a similar desire down in LA. His name was Lionel Ricks. He would become known as, quote, the Father. Lionel Ricks, and he is the founder of the Chosen Few Motorcycle Club. Father Ricks would establish the Chosen Few MC in 1959 with 5 of his friends. Before the end of 1959, the ranks would grow to 7 members, and by 1960, they would add an 8th member, White Boy Art, the first white member of the Chosen Few. Chosen Few MC became the first racially integrated 1%er club in the world. Lionel Ricks was born on July 29th, 1937 in Chicago. Chicago boy. He grew up an only child. He grew up around a Baptist environment, and when asked later why he started the Chosen Few, he answered simply, I wanted a family, I wanted brothers. He would study much about theology, and this enabled him to see his fellow man, not as color, but as humans. Make no mistake, though, he understood the times in which he was surrounded. He understood the environment in which he moved. He would more than once see his white brothers educate a bartender that refused service to a black brother and would provide a security escort to white brothers during the Watts and Rodney King riots. He would say that I love my family and brotherhood cannot have stipulations. Lionel's mother and father moved him to California when he was 9, where he lived with his aunt briefly before his parents joined him. He would graduate high school in California, where he was gifted athlete as a swimmer and gymnast. His athletic background never left him, as those that knew him would rarely see him indulge in anything worse than a hamburger or a soda. By 1980, he would be involved father to not only the Chosen Few MC, but also to 4 of his own kids, 3 daughters, and a son. By the time of his passing in 2015, he would be a grandfather 4 times over and a great-grandfather. And as you older guys know, there's nothing better than being a grandpa, let me tell you, man. I got 2 granddaughters and apple of my eye, let me tell you. He was able to bridge color and cultural gaps by bringing people together over the love of riding, brotherhood, and the motorcycle. And again, that's one thing that I really love about motorcycles is they bring everybody together under the same ideals. You know, even though we still have, you know, the white set, the black set, and, you know, all that kind of stuff, it still brings like-minded individuals together for the love of motorcycling. He could mix inner city and rural South African Americans together with Asians and Mexicans and white boys of different chapters within the Chosen Few. He even had a couple of members with Middle Eastern backgrounds. Before Martin Luther King Jr. was a widely known name, Ricks was bringing every walk of life together. He encouraged a member named Sir Thomas to keep drawing and designing pieces which was an interest of his, one of which would become a tradition within the Chosen Few. Tom would create a plaque with every new member name and the date he entered into the club, and the plaque he created would be hung on a clubhouse wall. After Sir Thomas's passing, this tradition is rumored to still go on. The father would even host a Bible study group at the clubhouse in South Los Angeles. Religion was something his had learned from his parents and carried throughout his life. Residents near the clubhouse on South Broadway would watch as the MC would be forced to leave its longtime residence in the late 2012, early 2013 after shady police tactics. There's a surprise, shady police tactics. And reminisce about safer way the neighborhood was before the MC left. And that's one thing, there's one story out there where 81 actually moved into a church and all the neighbors and stuff like that are all up in arms. What I can tell you is when an MC moves into your neighborhood, the neighborhood usually gets a lot safer than it was. Residents, you know, they love it. They'll talk about how, and we're going back to the article here, talk about how the entire neighborhood was covered in graffiti, but nobody would dirty up the clubhouse outside walls. that on Sundays, area residents could go over and listen to old blues music and eat barbecue for free. Blues is I love the blues, man. And one of the best blues players is Good Time Charlie over at Biker Inner Circle. Often residents would find chosen few members, Madhouse Buddy, and avid blues musicians playing live for them while they ate and the kids played. Before Chosen Few was forced to sell the long-standing clubhouse, residents would adamant about the close-knit feeling Lionel and the Chosen Few tried to bring to the neighborhood. And not long after that, almost as if the loss of so much history was too much to take, the father, Lionel Ricks, passed away on October 22nd, 2015. Thousands would turn out to remember him. From the funeral home to the cemetery route and memorial parties in between, it was easy to tell what he meant to the bike set, the community, and his brothers. During the memorial, Toby Jean would be moved to tears when talking about his final conversation with his friend and about hearing how he had become ill. Two icons in this life, in a life full of extraordinary men. If you take one thing away from this article, I hope it is genuine love Lionel Ricks had for his club and his brothers. So simple and pure in an air and in the area that saw so much that wasn't simple and pure, that would see so much turmoil. The father, Lionel Ricks, looked to put those he loved above the negative, to create something for them. His words made you family, and from then on, you were never without. As you grow in your clubs, whatever they may be, I hope you inspire to emulate that, to carry that forward. Also, please, whatever you do, sit down with that founder while you still can. If you can, talk to that old timer, hear those stories, take down the words that are safe for print, pass them to your new members, prospects, and even hang-arounds, so they understand just what your club and history mean. And that article is from Dave Walters. And Dave, you did a hell of a freaking job on that article. And just hearing the history of motorcycle clubs, it's something I love to death, because there is a history, there is a tradition. It ain't all about what Hollywood tries to portray biker clubs as. For example, you got a new film out there, and this has nothing to do with the club, but they named it this. It's called Outlaws. It's out of Australia, and it's just a big freaking mess. And from people that have seen it out in Oz, they say it's nothing but a joke. But that's the way, the media portrays it, because they need their income and stuff like that. But that's not really how a lot of MCs are. And you got a lot of jokesters that are going out there that talk about MC clubs, and most of them, it has to do with guys that were in multiple clubs, never could get into a club, or are out bad at clubs. That's where you're going to get a lot of these guys that are talking smack about MCs, because they're not wearing a patch. They couldn't make it to whatever they were doing. So, of course, they're going to go out there and pick the side of Leo or all the anti-clubbers, so they can make their money and shit on YouTube or on Facebook or whatever the hell they're doing. But it's stories like this that David gave that show the true meaning of what a lot of motorcycle clubs out there are really about. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And, take your time to get to know your founders if you're in clubs, or talk to the old timers, man. The old timers were always the best guys. I love being around, man. Everybody that was usually 10, 15, 20, 30 years older than me, I loved having conversations about how it used to be and shit like that. And they really give you a lot of history behind the set. But that's how a motorcycle can bring everybody together, man. It gives everybody a common interest. And it really does freaking open our eyes to a lot of shit that's going out here in life. But I want to thank you guys for all the orders and stuff for New Age of Biking and Brotherhood. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, tell your friends, all that good stuff. And you know what? Happy New Year. 2019's coming up, and we're going to be rocking it over here on Insane Throttle. So until then, I'll talk to you guys later.